Donnie and Dolly, the team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today, including BC Sports Hall of Famer, Hockey Hall of Famer Tony Gallagher, brought to you by the Bayside Oceanfront Resort. Tony standing by. Located in beautiful Parksville, the Bayside is the spot to relax your mind and indulge your senses, all while taking in their panoramic ocean views. And by the way, thanks to Brandon and everybody at the Bayside for helping out my son and I. Going to the Nashville game. We were guests of theirs. Just tremendous on Friday. Book your island getaway today at BaysideOceanfrontResort.com. He gets officially inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame on Monday. The Elmer Ferguson Award. Tony Gallagher joining us now. How are you, sir?
I'm very well indeed, gentlemen. Congratulations on your excellent show. Enjoying all the discussions. I'm fond of kind of DVRing it and watching it later in the day. So it's been really good.
Thanks for that, Tony. What does this induction mean to you?
Well, I'm trying to figure that out. I mean, for the longest time, I didn't think it was going to happen because, they just, especially when Larry Brooks went in like a couple of years, 2 or 3 years before me. I mean, they don't like to have too many, quote, bleep disturbing types on the roster. At least that hasn't been their history. And then when Brooksy went in, I figured, that's it. They'll write off the geezer and I'll pretty much be forgotten because I'd already retired and been retired for a year and a half. So I was quite taken by surprise. But now it's so long ago now that it's almost, like I forget about it. Just put the plaque up and I'll see it when I'm next in Toronto, never mind all the festivities. They want to go ahead and do it anyway. So, and that's great for guys, for Marion Host, Doug Wilson, Kevin Lowe, those guys, Jerome McGinley, obviously, Kim St. Pierre, they need to be recognized. Kenny Holland as well, I'm going in with. So I know almost all those people. I don't know Kim very well. But know everybody else, and it should be a lot of fun, actually.
Tony, you mentioned being a bleep disturber. Where did that? You were never afraid to tell it like it is, and then you'd be in the dressing room the next morning. Where did that come from? Where did that approach come from?
Well, I don't know. I mean, my predecessors weren't really that way. I mean, when you think about the previous hockey writers, when I took over, you had guys like Hal Sigurdsson, Clancy Loringer, Tom Watt. These guys weren't exactly really tough on the team, and perhaps, some for good reason because it was an expansion franchise. But then when I took on the beat, they were 7 years in. They should have had some semblance of ability to form a team at that point. So while they don't get the luxurious deal that the teams coming into the league get now, they certainly had 7 years to find their footing. And so I started to be a little critical. And I felt that if I was going to jab people and say some things that were perhaps not what they were used to at the time, at least, that I'd better show up. And I did. And of course, a lot of times you inevitably had to show up anyway. You had to be either at the game the next day or at practice or on the plane with them. That was the beauty of those days. You got a chance to talk to these guys informally. Be sitting around airports, you'd be in airplanes sitting beside them. And that sort of thing just doesn't happen today.
Yeah, and by the way, in Tony's introduction in the previous segment, I said BC Sports Hall of Fame. You're already there. It's the Hockey Hall of Fame. But Tony, what was that like? Writing a column where you criticize somebody and then traveling maybe with the team the next day or going into the dressing room the next day. What was that like?
Well, I mean, there's lots of incidences. I can remember one time I was in Philadelphia at the airport Marriott, probably the worst Marriott on the entire circuit. Miserable, sometime in the deep winter. And I had written a story that morning that Jack McIlhargey was on the trading block. The Canucks were going to trade McIlhargey probably back to Philadelphia. And that night we came down to get on the bus, and Jack had been called by his bride and told, hey, what's this story in here? What's going on? It was news to Jack, and he was really steamed. And I'm out in the front waiting for the bus with the rest of the guys, and the players are going to take us over to the rink to the game. And Jack is screaming at me saying, I'm still with the team, Tony. I'm still with the team. And he's right in my face. Have you noticed? I'm still with this team. Of course, he got traded about 6 days later. And but ever since that day, I mean, because I was there and sort of, faced him down and explained why I wrote the story, Jack, and this is my sources. And I didn't expose my source, but said I got it from very reliable people. And, it's being talked about, and whether it happens or not is another matter, but we'll see. And so, I mean, Jack and I were fast friends for years and years to come after that. And right up until Jack's death, it was, we were always great buddies.
Who would have won a fight between the two of you?
Well, that would have been close, but Jack, I wouldn't have lasted 3 seconds, actually. I'd have been in the pavement in Philadelphia. There would have been no Rocky scene there, that's for sure.
Tony, talk about the love-hate relationship with the Canucks. Brian Berkey stated in an article, tried to get me fired. We've all been in hot water. I've got the call where, they're, bitching and whining and complaining about something. Over the years, talk about how that relationship was up and down.
Well, I mean, with respect to Pat Quinn, that whole Quinn regime, really, for the 10 years with Brian Burke and George McPhee and that, it was constantly up and down. There'd be battles. They'd refuse to talk to me. Then there'd be détente efforts made. We'd talk for a while until I wrote something they didn't like. Then they'd fly off in a huff, try to get me fired. I think total, they made serious attempts to try and fire me 4 times and get me not rehired in the famous event where I had just been gone from the radio show I had over at Rogers there for a while, and which I enjoyed very much, actually, and really got my feet wet in radio. But it didn't last long. They switched formats, went to country, just as we passed Dan Russell in the ratings. Squire Barnes was my producer, and it was a lot of fun. We were starting to have fun at the thing. They changed formats. We get gonged, and the province wants to hire me back. And the Canucks tried to prevent me from being hired back by the province. And I felt that was the most serious attempt to kind of derail my career, because I had 3 boys under the age of 12 at the time. They needed support. And here these guys were trying to deny me employment. So that kind of stung a little bit, and I wasn't overly fond of that behavior. But otherwise, they were just honest attempts to get me reassigned or removed from the beat or fired, one of the two. I mean, the latest one came with Dennis Skulski running the show at Pacific Press. So that was like, right around 2010, 2009. So it was ongoing for probably a good many years. And there might have been other regimes to make efforts too.
Tony, if you were covering the Canucks right now, what would you focus on?
Well, obviously, I mean, it's the longevity of Jim Benning's attempt to try and get some winning here. I mean, it's his 8th year as the general manager, and he hasn't really made the playoffs yet. Yeah, they got into the playoffs when 20 teams were allowed, and they went on that little run in studio hockey with no fans. And that's basically, so basically he's been involved for 7 years, if you knock one off there. And they were not guaranteed to make the playoffs that year. And they haven't really made them in any other year. That's not very good. So I think he would have to come under some criticism. Has he assembled some pieces? Yes. But when you're that bad for that long, you should assemble some pieces. You know, you're drafting very, very high, and they've done well. They've hit on about 4 or 6, which isn't bad nowadays. In fact, it's quite good. So full marks for that. And then they've done really well lately in the second round. You guys talking about Pod Colson earlier in the broadcast here. So it's coming, but it's been a long time coming. And the question I would have is, yeah, Jim appears to be a very competent drafter, and the staff he's got. So, you know, if you're the Aquilinis, maybe keep him on at his salary and change his job and bring someone in to run the team and run the payroll. To this day, why this regime ever fired Lawrence Gilman, I just don't know. He could have handled all their contracts. Just black box that. You take care of the contracts, Lawrence. And they would have been fine. But they wanted to do it themselves, and it really got them into trouble over a period of years.
We could go on and on, Tony. So we could. You're in the BC Sports Hall of Fame, the Hockey Hall of Fame as of Monday. And Tony, we've just been informed, and this is a little inside info here, but you've just been inducted into the RADA Hall of Fame.
What greater honor could there be?
Yeah.
Really, if people could see RADA, they would take to it immediately. It's television. I mean, it could save television. Let's put it that way. The roof would be through the roof in RADA.
Hey, Tony, it didn't save us at 1040.
Yeah,
well,
no kidding.
The best RADA player of all time, though, is Don Taylor.
Yeah.
He's got huge hands. Honestly,
well, he's got a huge head too. Don't forget about that, Tony. Tony, I want to just say, you're the best there ever was, and it was just a pleasure to work with you. Read your stuff growing up, and then just unbelievable run in Vancouver, and you deserve to go in the Hockey Hall of Fame Monday, and enjoy it, pal.
Well, you're entirely too kind, Rick. I don't know. You're following up extremely nicely with all the scoops and that. I mean, you got to be on what Rick Dollywall's doing, or you're not catching the latest news in this town. And I'm not sure Jason Blatchford wouldn't have obliterated us all. So
100%.
He was a supernova, and so I mean, but you're very kind. I mean, I think it's high time someone from this market won. I mean, really,
big time.
But whoever typed anything in Toronto is in that. Nobody from Vancouver, second largest city.
Great point, Tony. Yeah. It's just Toronto, and now these suits in Toronto got AM radio in the gutter in Vancouver. It's just ridiculous, Tony. It's bad.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, I don't really want to talk about that. It's ugly.
It's bad.
This is the result right here. Hey, Tony, thanks for this. I feel the same way Rick does. Congratulations, all the best, and have a good time next week.
Thanks, guys.